First off, I apologise for this one being a little late. With the end of financial year stuff for work, health stuff with my family, and school holidays for wholesome dad time, I had a quite busy period during my usual recording times, so we are a little bit behind the ball. This also applies to my listening, which was definitely 10 to 20 albums lower than what I would have liked to have fit into the period, so this one is a bit of a scrapped together batch. I didn't have a hard time getting the stuff to fill the list, but this is absolutely the weakest set that I've put up. Nothing here is going to be on my end of year list to say the least. But who cares? At least I did reach our desired 10 minutes of blabbing, so let's get into that. Number 7. Torso Fuck. Erotic diarrhea fantasy / as semen blends to rot. So this was a choice. Doing some renditions of some tracks from the Lost second album is a really good idea, and this is worthwhile because of those. But I do think that Torso Fuck and New Standard Elite fucked up by tying it to a competent but extremely unrequested re-recording of their 2003 classic. It muddies the water like the floor on the original cover. Don't get me wrong, it's a perfectly competent re-recording. The sound is good. The story of the guy adding his son to his hyper-perverse novelty band 20 years after they initially broke up remains utterly hilarious to me. Recruiting your child to play in Torso Fuck should probably be some kind of crime. Probably multiple crimes. Maybe all the crimes. But the kid can play, and the sound is pretty fantastic, which is a relief after how shit-house the last EP sounded. And Fantasy was a good album, and it remains good. But the edges are sanded off it, and I think tying this new content to something which is bound to piss off most fans is a bad move. The drums are now real instead of one of the most obstructive drum machines ever used, and there are no samples on this thing at all. Sure, those two things made the original pretty intolerable for many, many people, but for those who got it, God, it gave the album so much character and made it stand out from the masses. This re-recording brings it back to normalcy. It's still good, but it's just not the same. So anyway, the 4 new tracks, all recreations of tracks from the Lost follow-up back in 2007 or so, are all pretty awesome. They're much slammier than the grindier, faster full length, but they put out some extra catchy grooves and heavy mosh parts at a high frequency, and it's a very good time. I think it could do with a sample or two to delineate some breakpoints in the EP, and no offense to the kid, the fake drums are actually a big point of character for the band, and I think it would stand out a lot more with them. It's definitely worth checking out just for these tracks, but I think it would have been a lot better received if they just put out the EP on its own. Number 6. Whores Nation / Nake Split. I feel kinda silly after specifically being recommended to give Fake Dust another try after the last recap, doing so, and still just not being able to connect to it that much, and then giving this a placement. That band is pretty creative and is blowing up and is absolutely something to say for itself with the sheer abuse of that drum performance. But I don't know, it doesn't get under my skin and move me. I think it's just the guitar tone being so low that I don't get that ripping movement I want out of grind. And then I put this on here, because it's some real basic bitch grind that just landed for me. I'll forget about this by the time the video is over, but hey, for now, it's fresh and it's a lot of fun. Whores Nation is the one I'm most drawn to. It's your basic, extremely aggressive, crusty D-beaty grind, maybe a little bit faster than your disrupt types, but basically we know all of these riffs. On the other hand, the sound is fucking massive. The guitars are crazy loud, and every repeat of Discharge riff number 4 at double speed successfully rips me around the room. It rules. Nak A are actually the reason why I checked this one out, and they're just kinda there. They don't drag things down per se, but they don't raise it up either. I'm a fan of a few of the main guys' other bands in Desecryptor and Filthchasm, so I was pretty on board with that track record, but I don't know, this is a bit too HM2y and the drums are too dinky and dry. It's fine. The split overall is still good, even though it has one clear winner. Number 5. Trichomoniasis / Dysthymia Split. I'm a pretty massive Trichomoniasis fanboy. Makeshift was in my top couple of releases of 2023, and their full-length album this year got a mention on a recent month-end summary. I just think they're neat. Dysthymia are generally one of the bands I'd have on the lower scale of the golden age of new standard elite representatives. I don't dislike the brutal death in the last days of humanity thing they've got going on, but they've never particularly enthralled me, aside from maybe the first chunk of that first album, which sounds so bad that it becomes kinda interesting if you're in the mood for hellish, painful noise. But yeah, this got on here because of Dysthymia. Tricho's side is a lot more like their breakout hit album, very straight ahead, if you can really call it that, violent noise death which is borderline incomprehensible. It's not bad, but I don't know, something's missing. I think it's largely production. The guitars are super bottomed out now, so it's much more of a fat tonal wall which doesn't feel as agile or unhinged to me. There's also a lot less abuse of pinch harmonics or those wild production change-ups, so it just kind of becomes a nice noise wall to absorb passively instead of maddening derangement. I will say the last song on here is utterly fantastic though, with its chunky slam and yawning harmonic screech trading off each other for the entire back half. If the whole thing was like that, it would be amazing. But it wasn't getting on the list on its own, and it wasn't even particularly close. And this is where Dysthymia stands up. They're still doing their brutal death take on Last Days of Humanity, but now it's produced super nicely, almost clean even, at least by the standards of things approaching gore noise, and I've got to say, it's working for me. The riffs are still definitely just fwub 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 really fast, but I don't know, I think it sounds really nice. It's definitely not as hellish as what they've done before, but it transfers a lot of energy and vigor that I really enjoyed. It's really hard to talk about this stuff, it's just intensity, but I enjoyed it. Number 4. Ozzawandles. Last Eclipse over Golgotha's Pit. Fuck you, buddy. I'm not playing your stupid spelling games. The dude from Scaff has another band which sounds a lot like Scaff, and I think this is pretty great. Ozzawandles leads a lot more into the psychedelic noodling while maintaining a backdrop of orthodox, lightly disso churning behind it, and I think it works really well. It is less chaotic than the main band, but I think the kind of ethereal lead work gives it a bit of a Bluedas Nord-esque spacey epicness, while still hitting fairly hard on the more straight-ahead stuff. It is kind of just one thing over and over again, and it doesn't really have distinct highlight riffs, since it really is just wandering vibes, but at 37 minutes, it doesn't run too far past its welcome. I like it. Number 3. Black Silice, Votive Fire. I'm not usually much of an Atmo Black guy, but there's something about Black Silice that works for me. There's not really anything new going on here or any particularly fresh riffs or ideas, they just have their sound balanced in a way that just clicks to my ears. All 4 of the songs have like 3 riffs on them, and they last for about 10 minutes and they all sound about the same. It's a way of a fuzzy, energetic melody that will either click or it won't. It's melodic raw black metal, so it's all going to come down to what flavors of cheap-ass bullshit you like, and I like this cheap-ass bullshit. This thing sounds like absolute arse in the best possible way. The big seller for me is the absolutely decrepit lead guitar tone, which rings in a weirdly reverbed and tinny way above the mush of blasts and backing drones. Every single one of the licks is repeated into oblivion, but I like the vibe a lot. The vocals are really well done, again, they're very distant and reverbed, but they add the closest thing we get to some dynamics to the compositions. I'm also a big fan of how the cymbals sound on the blasts. It's like he's using a small bell for it, so instead of the usual raw BM, wider, shimmering static wave stuff, you can make out all the individual taps, and it's just very pleasant and surprisingly dominant in the soundscape, despite being so dinky. I'm not sure if he's just sloppy, or if he's doing some fancy technical adjustments on it, but it wanders around quite a lot, and creates a surprising point of attention. All in all, this album is what it is. If you've heard Black Silice, they're still Black Silice. I'm here for it. Number 2. Metrorrhagia, carbonized isolation. Despite becoming a shockingly well-stocked genre over the last decade or so, there's generally only a handful of ways to do gore grind or gore noise. There's the death metal-y pharmacist groove stuff, the reek of putrefaction grindier stuff, the last days of humanity hyperblasted noise things, the influencian bolting it on to 40 different samples or genres, and then there's the more noise-based stuff, which kind of sounds like insect noises and bubbling more than any particular form of actual instrumentation. Generally speaking, bands are going to do one of these, and if there's a combination, it's usually the more genre-hopping with the putrefaction in progress cloning. There's a lot of bands, but not that many sounds, and generally quality is determined by production choices, vocalist quality, and gimmicks more than anything else. I bring this up because I don't think I've heard a band approach the genre with the exact combination of sounds that Metrorrhagia has done here. This is largely somewhere between the mid-paced, clearly riffed groove style and the grindier reek of putrefaction worship stuff, which is far from uncommon, but they've managed to pair this with the most abstracted bubbling noise things as well, and I haven't come across this before. The two guys in this band have a lot of experience in power electronics and so forth, so it appears like they've got some skills with sample insertion and layering. So they've managed to work in a bunch of weird gore noise touches into a bass line that's really quite accessible and fun. Maybe I've just missed a bunch of bands in this specific niche and it's just another common avenue, but for me at least, this was surprisingly fresh and very enjoyable. Number 1. Submerged. Resurfacing nautical ruin. Man, I love Submerged. I don't know why they didn't just write 8 more minutes and do a full length, but I guess 11 minutes of this is just enough to get all that nice Brodequin worship satisfaction. They're not really doing anything different to their last record. The bass sound is super clanking, which stands out a bit, but generally, yeah, if you like old Brodequin, these guys are some of the best doing it. It's super fast, blasterpatory, chaos, brutal death metal which still hits hard despite being quite raw. It's genuinely just this the whole time. It's one of the most directly brutal things you'll hear all year. There are some nice groove portions, but generally this just goes hard as fuck for 10 minutes and I love it. The full length is still the best thing that they've done, but they clearly haven't lost any vigor either. Can't wait for the next one. Well, that's June sorted. Hopefully July will be a return to normal programming and I can find a few more things to be really enthusiastic about my recommendations on, but I guess we'll see. This stuff definitely isn't bad and I really like all the samples I've chucked on here, but I can find drawbacks with everything I've covered. Next up, I'm going to be doing a quick little video on one band I was expecting to comfortably meet the cutoff here, but they didn't, so now I've got to do a whole thing about it. The big one is still coming, but I've decided to cast the widest possible net on it, so the extra month will be welcomed. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. I'm out.